A few weeks ago, Donald Trump floated an idea about the housing market. He said Wall Street shouldn't be allowed to compete with everyday Americans for single-family homes. At the time, some people dismissed it as just political talk, but now he actually did it. Yesterday, Donald Trump signed an executive order designed to stop large Wall Street investors from competing with Main Street homebuyers. And whether you love this idea or hate it, this move could quietly reshape how the housing market works going forward. So today I'm going to walk through what Trump signed, what it actually does, and how the media is reacting to it. And then also I'm going to talk about what this may mean for the housing prices going forward. Because the headline sounds simple, but it's really not that simple. Let's start with just the facts. Donald Trump signed an executive order named Stopping Wall Street from Competing with Main Street Homebuyers. The goal is straightforward. Limit the ability of large institutional investors from buying up single-family homes that families could otherwise purchase. This is no longer just an idea. It's now a federal policy in motion. The order directs multiple federal agencies to change how government programs interact with large housing investors. And those are the details that actually matter, so let's talk about those. Here's what it does. First, federal agencies are instructed to stop supporting the purchase of single-family homes by large institutional investors through government-backed programs. That includes programs like federal financing support, insurance, and securitization. Second, agencies are directed to implement the first look policies. That means individual buyers get priority access to certain homes before large investors can step in. Now, third, the Treasury Department, the Department of Justice, and the FTC are instructed to review and enforce antitrust laws against coordinated investor strategies that reduce competition. Fourth, HUD is directed to increase transparency around who actually owns single-family rental homes. In other words, who owns what and how much. And now finally, the administration has signaled that legislation may follow to make these limits permanent. So this isn't purely symbolic. This is a structural policy shift. But now here's where the nuance matters. This is not an outright ban on Wall Street buying homes. It is not illegal for large investors to buy single-family homes. But what this order does is it removes federal support and adds friction to the process. Economists have described it as creating an obstacle course for large buyers, not slamming the door shut. There are also exceptions. Notably, build-to-rent developments designed from the start as rental communities are largely carved out. So capital doesn't disappear, it just gets redirected. And that distinction is critical for understanding the housing market impacts this could have. And this idea gained traction because many buyers feel they're not just competing with their neighbors, they're also competing with hedge funds. The White House argues that homes should be owned by families and not corporations. And politically, that message resonates with the people. And this especially resonates with first-time buyers, young families, and frustrated renters that are locked out of the housing market. But political appeal does not always equal economic outcome. So here's some context to the whole situation that even started this. Institutional investors own millions of single-family homes, but nationally, they still represent a relatively small percentage of total single-family housing stock. However, their impact is not evenly distributed. In certain markets, especially fast-growing metros, investors make up a much larger share of buyers. And that's where competition feels most intense. And that's where this order could actually matter the most. And with talking about this, the media reaction has been mixed. Supporters of the idea frame this as a win for Main Street, a policy designed to give families a fighting chance. Critics and economists are more cautious. Many are pointing out that this doesn't increase housing supply, investors may find workarounds, and the effect could be limited without deeper reform. Several analysts emphasize that this policy increases friction, but does not fundamentally rebalance supply and demand. And you know what? Both sides are correct on this, but that depends on the time frame. In the short run, this could reduce investor competition in certain segments of the market, especially entry-level homes, starter homes, and foreclosure or government-linked sales, that could give individual buyers a slightly better shot. But don't expect prices to suddenly fall. If demand remains strong and supply remains constrained, prices stay what they are. Now, if we talk about long-term, that becomes a little more complicated. If investors shift capital to build-to-rent developments or multifamily housing, supply dynamics may change, but that would happen very slowly. And if legislation doesn't follow, future administrations could reverse course. And if housing supply does not meaningfully increase, this policy alone cannot fix affordability, no matter what you do. This simply changes who competes with who. Is it Main Street versus Wall Street, or is it Main Street versus Main Street? There's still competition. And since it doesn't change how many homes exist, the affordability crisis could continue, and this may have very little to no impact on the affordability. So here's my honest takeaway. Trump didn't just talk about this, he acted. This is an executive order, and it adds real friction to Wall Street's role in housing. It may help some buyers, and it does send a powerful political signal, but it is just not going to be a cure for the housing crisis. Housing doesn't break or heal with a single policy. It changes at the margins first. And this is one of those margin shifting moments. The question now isn't whether this order matters. It does. But the real question is this the beginning of a broader housing reset, or just another policy that treats symptoms without fixing the cause? Let me know what you think down below.